The Third French Republic, proclaimed in 1870 after the collapse of Napoleon III's Second Empire in the disastrous aftermath of the Franco-Prussian War, represented a new era in France's political evolution. The humiliating defeat at Sedan, which led to the capture of the emperor, and the subsequent siege of Paris by Prussian forces, created a vacuum of power that the newly formed Republican government sought to fill. Initially intended as a temporary solution until the restoration of the monarchy, the Republic endured far beyond expectations, becoming the longest-lasting political regime France had known up to that point. Its beginnings were marked by extreme instability, political uncertainty, and deep ideological conflict between monarchists, Bonapartists, and Republicans. The early years saw the bloody suppression of the Paris Commune in 1871, a radical socialist uprising that attempted to establish a government based on popular sovereignty and workers' control, only to be crushed by government troops at the cost of tens of thousands of lives. In the following decades, the Republic gradually solidified its institutions, establishing a parliamentary democracy rooted in the values of liberty, equality, and fraternity. The Constitution of 1875 laid the legal framework for a bicameral legislature composed of the Chamber of Deputies and the Senate, alongside a relatively weak presidency, a deliberate attempt to prevent the rise of another authoritarian ruler. Through the reforms of Education Minister Jules Ferry in the 1880s, primary education became free, compulsory, and secular, breaking the dominance of the Catholic Church over French schooling. These measures aimed not only to educate citizens, but also to instill republican virtues, civic duty, and rational thought. The principle of laicity, the strict separation between church and state, became a defining characteristic of French identity, though it also created enduring tensions between secular and religious factions. Economically, the Republic oversaw industrial growth, the expansion of railways, and a growing colonial empire in Africa and Asia. Yet the period was far from peaceful. France was politically fragmented, with governments often short-lived due to shifting parliamentary coalitions. Scandals such as the Panama Canal financial corruption in the 1890s eroded public trust in the political class, and the rise of nationalism and anti-Semitism created an increasingly volatile atmosphere. It was within this charged environment that the Dreyfus Affair erupted, an event that would become one of the most defining crises in modern French history. In 1894, Captain Alfred Dreyfus, a brilliant officer of Alsatian Jewish origin serving in the French General Staff, was accused of selling military secrets to Germany. The evidence against him was weak, consisting mainly of a handwritten memorandum, or bordereau, whose authorship was highly disputed. Nevertheless, driven by anti-Semitic prejudice and institutional arrogance, the army hastily convicted him of treason in a secret court-martial and sentenced him to life imprisonment on Devil's Island, a remote penal colony in French Guiana. Dreyfus's degradation, his epaulets ripped off and his sword broken before the assembled troops, was meant as a public demonstration of loyalty to the army and the nation. However, the case did not end there. In 1896, Lieutenant Colonel George Picquart, the new head of military intelligence, discovered that the real spy was another officer, Major Ferdinand Walsin Esterhazy. When Picquart tried to report his findings, he was silenced, reassigned, and imprisoned for revealing military secrets. The Army's cover-up deepened as senior officers forged documents to maintain Dreyfus's guilt and protect the institution from scandal. The affair might have remained buried if not for the growing pressure from intellectuals and journalists who sought justice. The turning point came in January 1898, when the renowned writer Émile Zola published his open letter J'accuse in the newspaper L'Aurore, directly accusing the army and government of conspiracy, anti-Semitism, and obstruction of justice. Zola's letter electrified public opinion, dividing France into two irreconcilable camps: the Dreyfusards, who defended truth, justice, and individual rights, and the anti-Dreyfusards, who viewed the affair as an attack on the honor of the army and a betrayal of the nation. The debate spilled far beyond legal circles, touching every layer of society: politicians, clergy, soldiers, and ordinary citizens alike. Anti-Semitic leagues organized violent demonstrations, while Republican and socialist groups rallied for justice and human rights. After years of legal battles, retrials, and political upheavals, Dreyfus was finally exonerated in 1906, reinstated in the army, and awarded the Legion of Honor. The affair had left deep scars. It had shaken public faith in the military and judiciary, polarized the press, and exposed the virulence of anti-Semitic and reactionary movements in France. Yet it also had a profound and lasting impact on the moral and political conscience of the Republic. It strengthened the principles of equality before the law, the independence of the judiciary, and the supremacy of civilian authority over the military. The controversy accelerated the process of secularization, culminating in the 1905 law on the separation of church and state, one of the most important legacies of the Third Republic. In the broader perspective, the Dreyfus Affair represented a struggle between two visions of France, one rooted in tradition, nationalism, and clericalism, and the other in rationalism, democracy, and universal rights. The Republic, though wounded, emerged more resolute in its commitment to justice and reason. It demonstrated that the strength of a democracy lies not in the absence of conflict, but in its ability to confront and correct injustice. The Third Republic thus matured through crisis, laying the foundation for the modern French state that would face the challenges of the 20th century with renewed moral authority.